Imagine you are drifting toward a planet the color of a deep, endless ocean. No ship has ever survived what's waiting for you below. Your instruments are calm. Your screen shows a peaceful blue world, quiet and cold, 4 billion kilometers from anything human. You feel safe. You are not. Because somewhere beneath those clouds, the fastest winds ever recorded in this solar system are already tearing across the planet at over 2,100 kilometers per hour. And you're flying straight into them. At first, Neptune looks like a painting. A soft, glowing sapphire, streaked with faint white clouds that drift like brushstrokes across its face. It's the kind of image that makes people believe space is gentle, peaceful, almost inviting. But something is wrong. That beauty is a mask. Neptune isn't calm. It's one of the most violent atmospheres ever measured by a spacecraft. When Voyager 2 flew past in 1989, scientists expected a quiet, frozen world, dim and lifeless this far from the sun. Instead, they found a planet screaming with supersonic wind, a massive dark storm nearly the size of Earth tearing through its southern hemisphere, and weather so extreme it defied the models they had built. And that was just the first glance. Neptune is nearly 4 times wider than Earth. If you tried to picture your spacecraft against its atmosphere, it would look like a single grain of sand falling into an ocean during a hurricane. There is no shoreline. No safe harbor. Just endless churning gas stretching thousands of kilometers in every direction, with nothing solid to land on, ever. But here's the problem. Neptune has no surface. There's nowhere to crash. You don't hit the ground. You just keep falling. Deeper and deeper. Into pressure that never stops building. Neptune sits over 30 times farther from the Sun than Earth does. It receives less than 1,000th of our sunlight. By every rule of planetary science, that should mean a sluggish, sleepy atmosphere. Barely enough energy to drive powerful weather. Instead, its winds are the fastest ever detected on any planet in our solar system. They can reach speeds of over 2,100 kilometers per hour. Fast enough to turn the atmosphere itself into a weapon. Imagine your spacecraft entering those winds. The air isn't moving around you like a gentle breeze. It is ripping across your hull at incredible speed, battering every exposed surface and placing enormous stress on the structure. And scientists still don't fully agree on where all that energy comes from. Some theories point to heat rising from Neptune's interior. Others suggest that the planet's rapid rotation helps twist its atmosphere into a self-feeding engine of chaos. But it gets worse. These winds don't move in one predictable direction. They rip across different latitudes in opposite directions, creating enormous shear zones where layers of atmosphere race against each other. Your spacecraft is caught between them. One side is being pushed in one direction. Another side is being dragged in the opposite direction. The danger isn't simply impact. It's the atmosphere pulling the spacecraft apart. And then there is the storm. During the Voyager 2 flyby, astronomers spotted something they called the Great Dark Spot. It was a massive storm system roughly the size of Earth itself. From a distance, it looked almost beautiful. A dark oval staring out from a brilliant blue planet. But inside that dark shape was an atmosphere moving with incredible violence. The storm rotated through Neptune's southern hemisphere, surrounded by clouds and winds far more powerful than anything we experience on Earth. And then something happened that made Neptune even stranger. Imagine descending deeper into Neptune. The first thing you notice is the cold. The upper atmosphere can reach temperatures near -218 degrees Celsius. Cold enough to make the environment around your spacecraft almost impossible to imagine. But the cold isn't actually the worst part. Because as you descend, something changes. The temperature begins to rise. Pressure increases rapidly as the atmosphere becomes denser and denser around you. The gas above your spacecraft is no longer a thin layer of clouds. It becomes an enormous weight pressing down from every direction. Your instruments begin climbing. Temperature rising. Pressure rising. Wind still screaming across the hull. There is no altitude where you can simply stop and wait. Every layer has another way to destroy the spacecraft. Stay high, and you're exposed to Neptune's extreme winds and freezing atmosphere. Go deeper, and the pressure becomes increasingly dangerous. The spacecraft continues falling. And eventually, the atmosphere becomes so dense and compressed that it stops behaving like the familiar gas you know on Earth. Deep beneath the clouds, pressure reaches levels impossible to experience naturally at Earth's surface. Water, ammonia, and methane are compressed into strange states of matter. And somewhere in that unimaginable environment may be one of the strangest phenomena in the solar system. Diamond rain. Deep inside Neptune, enormous pressure can break methane molecules apart. Carbon may then be forced into crystalline structures, creating diamonds that could fall downward through the planet's interior like a bizarre form of cosmic hail. You would never see it. Your spacecraft would be destroyed long before reaching those depths. The pressure alone would eventually overwhelm its structure. But pressure isn't the only enemy. The wind is still there. Different atmospheric layers continue moving at different speeds. But perhaps the most unsettling thing about Neptune isn't what we know. It's what we don't. Humanity has only visited this distant world once. In 1989, Voyager 2 flew past Neptune, becoming the only spacecraft ever to make a close encounter with the planet. It was an extraordinary achievement. But compared with the age and complexity of Neptune itself, it was barely a moment. Voyager 2 gave us a glimpse. Not a complete picture. We saw enormous storms appear and disappear. We measured winds moving at incredible speeds. We observed cloud systems changing across the planet. But we didn't watch Neptune for decades. We didn't see every storm form. We didn't follow every atmospheric current. We don't know exactly what triggers the planet's most violent weather. And we certainly don't know what is happening deep beneath those blue clouds. That means a spacecraft entering Neptune today would not be exploring a completely understood environment. It would be entering a world where our models have limits. We could calculate a trajectory. We could estimate the pressure. We could predict the temperature. We could study the winds. But prediction is not the same as certainty. And Neptune has a habit of reminding us how little we truly understand. A storm can appear where none existed before. A massive vortex can disappear. Atmospheric currents can change. And somewhere below the visible clouds, pressure continues increasing. There is no safe altitude. Not above the storms. Not between them. Not beneath the clouds. The deeper you go, the more violent the environment becomes. Eventually, the cold gives way to intense heat. The heat gives way to crushing pressure. And the pressure leads into a world of matter behaving in ways we can barely reproduce on Earth. You are not fighting Neptune. Neptune isn't attacking you. It doesn't know you exist. That's what makes it terrifying. There is no enemy here. No creature. And that is the final lesson Neptune leaves behind. The universe was never built with us in mind. We evolved on one small world, surrounded by a thin layer of breathable air, protected by a magnetic field, warmed by a distant star, and balanced within a narrow range of temperature and pressure. Everything about human life depends on conditions that feel normal only because we have never known anything else. We breathe without thinking. We walk on solid ground. We expect the atmosphere above us to remain calm. We expect the temperature to stay within a survivable range. We expect the ground beneath our feet to stop us from falling. Neptune has none of those promises. There is no solid surface waiting below the clouds. No breathable atmosphere. No safe temperature. No stable weather. No place where a human spacecraft could simply stop and survive. Only layer after layer of gas, wind, pressure, heat, and darkness. And somewhere inside that enormous blue world, storms are forming and disappearing while the planet continues its silent journey around the sun. We look at Neptune from billions of kilometers away and see a beautiful blue sphere. But beauty can be misleading. That peaceful color hides winds moving faster than 2,000 kilometers per hour. Those soft clouds hide storms larger than Earth. That distant atmosphere hides pressures capable of destroying machines built by the most advanced technology humanity has ever created. And beneath everything is a world we have barely begun to understand. Maybe that's what makes Neptune so frightening. Not that it wants to kill you. It doesn't. Not that it is waiting for you. It isn't. It is terrifying because it doesn't care. It doesn't need to. The same laws of physics that allow us to exist on Earth can create environments completely incompatible with human life somewhere else. And Neptune is one of those places. A world where the atmosphere becomes an ocean. But there is one final thought. Imagine that you are still inside the spacecraft. Your instruments are failing. The windows are surrounded by darkness and violent blue clouds. The planet beneath you is no longer something you can see clearly. It has become an endless wall of atmosphere. Your altitude keeps dropping. The pressure keeps rising. And somewhere above you, sunlight is already fading into darkness. You know that Earth is still out there. Billions of kilometers away. People are still moving through their ordinary lives. Cars are driving. Cities are glowing. Someone is looking at the night sky without knowing that a spacecraft is disappearing inside the blue world above them. Your final signal travels outward at the speed of light. But Neptune is so distant that even light needs more than 4 hours to cross the distance between your spacecraft and Earth. There is nothing anyone can do. Not because they don't care. But because information itself cannot travel fast enough. Your instruments continue recording. Temperature. Pressure. Wind speed. Altitude. Then another warning appears. The pressure is rising faster than expected. The spacecraft adjusts its orientation. The wind pushes back. Another correction. Then another. The hull begins to vibrate. The signal weakens. The blue clouds outside become darker. For a moment, everything becomes strangely quiet. And then the transmission ends. No explosion. No final image. Just silence. Somewhere beneath the clouds, the spacecraft continues falling. And Neptune continues rotating. The storm continues moving. The winds continue racing around the planet. Nothing has changed. Because Neptune was never the villain in this story. We were simply trying to survive inside a world that was never meant to support us. And perhaps that is the most important thing these distant planets teach us. Humanity often looks at the universe and asks whether we can conquer it. From Earth, Neptune looks almost harmless. A tiny blue point hidden among millions of stars. You need a telescope just to see its disk clearly. You might even mistake its color for something peaceful. But distance changes perception. From billions of kilometers away, a world of violent winds can look like a calm sphere of blue. The same way a hurricane seen from orbit can look like a beautiful spiral. You don't see the destruction from that height. You only see the pattern. Neptune is the same. Its clouds form enormous structures across an atmosphere that never stops moving. Winds race around the planet at incredible speeds. Storms appear, transform, and disappear. And beneath all of it, pressure continues increasing. There is no boundary where the danger suddenly begins. The danger is everywhere. You could remain above the largest storms and still face extreme cold and violent winds. Descend farther, and the atmosphere becomes denser. Go deeper, and pressure begins crushing everything around you. Continue downward, and temperature rises. The spacecraft doesn't get a chance to escape. There is no emergency landing. No runway. No ocean to splash into. No mountain to crash against. Just atmosphere. Endless atmosphere. And that changes the meaning of falling. On Earth, falling eventually ends. You hit the ground. On Neptune, there may be no such moment. You simply continue downward until the spacecraft can no longer function. That is what makes Neptune different. The planet doesn't need an obvious surface to destroy you. It only needs gravity. The rest is handled by physics. And the deeper you go, the more difficult it becomes to imagine what the spacecraft is experiencing. Pressure pushing from every direction. Heat building around the hull. Winds moving across different layers. Sensors struggling to make sense of the environment. Communication weakening. And somewhere above, the blue clouds continue moving as if nothing. The deeper the spacecraft falls, the less familiar Neptune becomes. At first, the atmosphere still looks like clouds. Blue layers. White streaks. Dark patches moving across the planet. But eventually, those familiar shapes disappear. The gas becomes thicker. The pressure becomes stronger. The distinction between atmosphere and something more solid begins to blur. There is no clear moment when you can say, this is where the atmosphere ends. It simply keeps becoming denser. And denser. And deeper. The spacecraft's instruments are now measuring conditions that no human body could survive for even a fraction of a second. The temperature is rising. The pressure is climbing. The winds are still moving through the atmosphere at incredible speeds. Outside the hull, molecules are being forced closer and closer together. Matter begins behaving differently under those extreme conditions. Water, ammonia, and methane can exist in forms that would seem impossible under normal conditions. And somewhere much deeper, carbon may be compressed into crystalline structures. Diamond rain. Not diamonds falling through an open sky like snow on Earth. Something far stranger. Carbon forming under enormous pressure and sinking deeper into Neptune. A phenomenon that reminds us how different the physics of another world can become. And maybe that is the most terrifying thing about Neptune. Not the wind. Not the cold. Not even the crushing pressure. It's the realization that none of it is personal. Neptune isn't trying to destroy you. It doesn't know you are there. It doesn't care about your spacecraft, your technology, or the people waiting for your signal back on Earth. The planet simply follows the laws of physics. Its winds race around the atmosphere. Its storms form and disappear. Its pressure increases with depth. Its temperature changes. And everything caught inside those forces must obey the same laws. Including you. That is what makes Neptune so unsettling. It shows us how fragile the conditions are that allow human beings to exist. We live on a world with a solid surface beneath our feet. We breathe an atmosphere with the right mixture of gases. We experience temperatures within a narrow range. We receive energy from a stable star. And because these conditions surround us every second of our lives, we assume they are normal. They aren't. They are extraordinary. Neptune is what happens when the same universe creates a world under completely different conditions. A world with no solid surface. A world where winds can move faster than 2,000 kilometers per hour. A world where storms larger than Earth can appear and disappear. A world where pressure and temperature become increasingly extreme the deeper you fall. And perhaps somewhere deep inside that blue planet, matter is being transformed by forces we can barely reproduce on Earth. From 4 billion kilometers away, Neptune looks beautiful.